Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Michelle, and today I want to talk to you about social justice. Specifically, why social justice is a core subject in our homeschool. If you're new here, I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old. I am currently homeschooling my 8 and 5-year-old. So, social justice is a core subject we cover. Every Wednesday we do our normal math and reading, but we dedicate the rest of the day to a specific social justice issue we're covering. And I'll go over how I kind of do that. But first I want to talk about, so what is social justice? Social justice is the belief that everybody deserves equal opportunity, whether that be economically, politically, educationally. Everybody deserves equal rights. So why is this important, so important that I included in my children's education? I'll explain how I came to it. So the last 2 years have definitely been difficult, not just because of the pandemic, but because of the very obvious racial issues going on in this country. I think they're not new issues. I think they're deeply rooted in laws, government, different things like that, how our country was formed. And I remember sitting there angry at all the violence and hatred going on in the world, and sad. And I sat with that for a while, and I said, you know, I can be sad, I can be mad, but I need to do something. I need to do something, right? So my something was, I need to educate myself and educate my children so the world, I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but so the world can be a better place. Not just for my children, for everybody's children. And you know, this was not an easy choice or path at all, because to be completely frank, when you talk about social justice issues, you really have to do a lot of self-reflecting on different things, things you were taught, the way you were brought up, and you really have to come to terms with your own issues and beliefs and perspective before you can tackle these. So what I really like about this, that we're teaching this in our homeschool, is it's not just solely for my children, it is for me, because I was never taught about, in high school you were taught the civil rights movement, things like that, but I was definitely presented it in a way that this is something that happened in the past, it was resolved, it was over, and we moved on. But it's so not true. And the fact that I attended public school doesn't cover so many different perspectives of different people is another issue, but we're not gonna get into that now. So here I am, I wanna make a change, but I'm not sure how, especially with my education, my family. None of these places were resources I had growing up or as an adult. And one resource I want to give you that has really helped me, that I recently just found actually, was Social Justice Parenting, How to Raise Compassionate, Anti-Racist, Justice-Minded Kids by Tracy Baxley. I think this is a wonderful book. I think it gives, I'll give you a shot of the table of contents of why it's important. So what is social justice parenting? Why is it important? And then the steps you take. And number one step is reflection. So you need to really, what she refers to as own your own junk, come to terms with, if you've never had to talk about race as a child with your parents, or as a parent talking to your child, if you've never had to talk about race, that's a privilege. And race was never discussed growing up in my household. And if it was in very derogatory terms, to be completely honest. So being able to educate myself was difficult. Being able to talk to my children about how I was raised and how some of my family members still have certain beliefs that I don't agree with. Having those conversations is difficult, but it's completely necessary to make a change in this world. What I really like in the book is she talks about how, especially as children, you don't feel like you have a lot of power in a world run by adults, right? So it can be hard to think that anything you do can change. And as adults, I can understand that feeling too. How one little act doesn't seem like it can do much, but why it's so important, because that act, whether it be an act of kindness or being an ally to a group, is a ripple effect, right? So you're that tiny ripple in an ocean of injustice. And it can feel like it doesn't do a lot, but that ripple can lead to another ripple and another ripple. And soon those little ripples lead to a wave of change. And I love that. I love that idea. So my first resource would definitely be that book. But how I educated myself, I definitely looked for resources out there. There are a couple YouTube channels that I do enjoy watching. For example, Better Done Than Perfect. I'll link the channel down below. She talks about resources that I think are really good, that it's especially for history. She recently did a Martin Luther King one that I found extremely helpful, because again, in my home life and education, I was never really taught much about Martin Luther King, to be completely honest, besides the main parts of his life. So that's a wonderful resource. But the other resource I came upon was this subscription box. And I've talked about this a couple times in my channel. I also have reviews, unboxings of this. This is not sponsored. This will never be sponsored. I don't do sponsored content. But I love sharing this resource out there, because if you're like me, you were looking for something that not only educates yourself, but helps you educate your children on social justice issues. So Little Justice Leaders is a social justice subscription box aimed at children K through 6th grade. Every week you receive a book, activities, a craft, and it's themed around a specific social justice issue. So for example, we've talked about homelessness, we've talked about food insecurity, we've talked about the LGBTQ community, we've talked about specific groups of people. So we've talked about celebrating Native Americans, Asian American Pacific Heritage Month, activism. So it covers specific things, and things I honestly wouldn't have thought about, because again, I come from a place of privilege. Things like food insecurity and how that's a social justice issue. So what I really like is it comes with a book every month that centers around that. And I'll show you some of the books we've had so far. This was one of them, Follow the Moon. This is about kids, how kids can become activists and help change the world. When Aiden Became a Brother, this is a really good one about talking about the transgender community and also just gender roles and the assumptions we make with that. That was really good. We Are Grateful. This was for Native American Heritage Month. Lulu and the Hunger Monster. This was really good. Talks about food insecurity, and I think it puts in a story that it's very easy for children to understand. Let's Celebrate. This was for the December box, celebrating different traditions around the world, which I really enjoyed. A Place to Stay, which was about a homeless family. So those are just a few examples, but what I really like about is that in each box comes a books to learn more. So it has suggested books for kids on the topic, but it also has suggested books for adults, which is so crucial. I mostly check these out from the library. There are a few I've purchased myself because I either couldn't find them or they looked really good. But it gives you resources as an adult to learn more, because the first thing you're going to have to do, especially if you come from a background where these things aren't talked about, is educate yourself. And then while you're doing that, you can educate your children at the same time. So I really love that it does this. It also has a tips for adults section, and then in each box also has a section on one of these cards about what you can do. You're not just talking about these social justice issues or injustice issues. You are physically involving yourself, which I really love, because I don't want social justice to just be a lesson plan that we go over, we cover on a holiday. I want it to be part of our lives. So one thing I really also enjoy, for every box you get. And again, these boxes, in my opinion, are more expensive. I think they're like $45 a piece. That, to me, that's a lot of money to spend. But to me, it's worth it because it's giving me resources to teach myself and my children. What I love is that it uses resources from the group that is being talked about or the social issue that is being discussed. It will pull from people from those groups, their voices, their perspective, and I think that's so important. I think it's very easy to find, lesson plans on Teachers Pay Teachers about racism or Martin Luther or something like that, but where are those resources coming from? I really want to be respectful of the groups we are talking about and pull ideas and resources from that group. So one thing I also really enjoy about this box is for every box you buy, it donates a proceeds of that box to whatever organization is being covered in that month. So every month, again, you're talking about different social justice issue. So every month that donation is going to a different social justice issue, which I really like because I feel like my money is being spread out to help different causes, not necessarily just one cause. So for example, for the celebrations of the world or celebrations around the world in December, the United Religions Initiative is where the money was donated to. And again, every month it's different. But I feel like that alone is helping a small change. And then being able to take the resources as an adult and use those resources to help teach my children. I think some other wonderful resources are Fish Take Learning has some social justice themed lesson plans. Again, that is completely free. I'll link it down below. The Civil Rights Museum has some lesson plans. Again, I'll link it down below. I found this one specifically from the YouTube channel Better Done Than Perfect, and I love that it is so easy to incorporate in your homeschool, and it's very discussion based, which the same with the subscription box is very discussion based. It's not that you're just presenting an idea, reading a book, and doing an activity. You are discussing it, you're diving deep into this, because the only way we're going to learn about these things is having open discussions about it. So, for example, we were talking about activism in our latest box, and we were talking about racism. And my 8-year-old daughter looked at me and she's like, "Mom, racism is still around?" And a part of me just hurt. And I'm like, yes, it is so prevalent and alive in our society today. And it is up to us to change that. And to be completely honest, it's not easy to have these conversations all the time, especially when you have to deal with your own personal junk. And it can be sad and it can make you angry. But you can also use that passion you're feeling to make change, to inspire yourself and your children to change this world for the better. That it doesn't matter how small you are or how small the act you do is, you can change this world. So those are some of the resources I have been using. I also want to really quick show you some of the books I've gotten, because I think one of the first steps when talking about social justice is to talk about activism and what activism means. So I'm going to share some of the books that I've been reading with the kids. Because again, like I said before, as a child, it can seem very hard to be able to make any change in this world when you are constantly told what to do. So some of the ones I've really liked are Let the Children March. And this is the children-led march in the civil rights movement. So I thought this was really good about how these children helped change segregation. I got Pride, the story of Harvey Milk and the rainbow flag. This was really good. What we did for our actual get out there and do something for the LGBTQ month was we purchased a pride flag, and it flies outside our house. And I really think this helps reiterate why that's so important to not only us, but for other people to see. I got No Truth Without Ruth, the life of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Resist, Peaceful Acts That Changed Our World. Since Martin Luther King Jr. Day is coming up this Monday, the 17th, we are reading some of the works from him. Elijah Cummings, North Star of Equal Justice. Speak Up. Sometimes People March. Again, because we were talking specifically for Martin Luther King, I got the Show Me History series and the Who Was Martin Luther King, just to give a general overview of his life and main things. Because again, my children are on the younger side, so I need to give them some background knowledge before we dive into deeper subjects. But some other ones is Resist, 35 Profiles of Ordinary People Who Rose Up Against Tyranny and Injustice. Kid Activist, I think this was a really good one because it goes to show, and it's true tales of childhood from champions of change, how children can incite change and lead to change in this world. And specifically, since I have girls, I think it's very important to include stories about women who have done great things, because as a woman, it's not always easy to be represented or treated fairly, so I think that's very important. The last thing I picked up specifically for Activism Month that we're talking about is this little doll. I found it was actually suggested to me on Amazon. You ever feel like Amazon knows you really well? It is a Lottie doll. It is a kid activist doll. So here's the box here. I thought this was really cute. And it comes with a stand up sticker that's on her shirt and a Kids Voices Matter. So I will open this up and show you guys the inside real quick. All right, so I just opened up the doll, and what I really like is, besides her accessories, which include a Kids Voices Matter little sign, a megaphone, is that the dolls are based upon real children that promoted change. So this is based, it's a kid activist doll. It's based on Mari, I hope I'm saying that right, but it gives a little biography of her and how she helped bring people's attention to the Flint water crisis. So what I also really like about this doll is, besides the fact that it's the correct proportions that would be for a child. So to give you an example of, I don't think I have any ones to show you of regular Barbie dolls, but you can see it's not overly done crazy makeup. What I really love is that it comes with a Kids Voices Matter, stand up, so really cute. It looks like a child, what a child should look like. Also in our house, we really like to focus on having multiple different ethnic groups represented in our dolls and our Barbie dolls, things like that. But one thing that has really irritated me is that even when you get, so for example, I have different Barbies here, their hair is straight, right? So you can see this is completely straight. Even with the kid dolls, it's not even actual hair, it's usually just hard. But again, it's presented as always very straight, which I don't understand. So what I loved about this doll is her hair, that it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and we can celebrate that. So this is what my kids will be getting for this month, learning about Little Activist. And there's a whole series of dolls that this company has. Again, I just got it off Amazon, but it's inspired by kids. I love that. I think that's a great idea. Much better than the typical Barbie you're gonna find. So those are some of the why I teach social justice to my kids. Some of the resources I use and why I think it's important. So if you have any questions, please link them down below. If you have any resources you're aware of, please link them down below. I'm always looking for more resources that could help us in our social justice journey. But again, thank you for watching.